Good evening. Thank you for attending this meeting of the Estates Committee. First item is apologies for absence. We have apologies from Lita and Reb. Are we happy to accept those? Val's not currently here, but may well. Thank you.
Yep, it's fine.
Okay, good. The second item is declarations of interest. Anybody have anything they want to declare at this point?
Don't think so.
No. That's nothing.
I work for Angle School and we'll be declare that at some point.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Okay. Let's get on. Representation from interested parties. David, go for it.
I like to stand for it. You sort of vaguely noisy.
Yeah.
A few months ago, Transition Animal proposed that we look into do some work on research to see whether it's feasible to put a solar array on this building. Liaise, and we've got support through Jerry to do it. So this is sort of the results of that. So I'll go fairly quickly through the slides because you can't pre-read. And essentially two proposals to have in mind, which Lisa's quickly moved off on the first slide. I'm going to suggest that you go out and get some quotations, find out what it really will cost. There are some budget quotes already in here, and then you'll need to get funding, I think, which also can take a bit of time. Then on the second slide, I've just put some by way of context, how much power and gas do you use? So there's 27,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, costs just under £8,000 a year. Gas is 122,000, which costs about 3,500. And that will double next year when your current tariff runs out, contract runs out. What we did was, pros and cons. If you put an array in, it demonstrates a commitment on the part of the council to mitigate the effects of climate change. You can expect to make some savings, around an estimate of about 20% of your consumption will be saved. You'll use the solar panels to provide that electricity. You get some money from exporting, and there are a couple of figures in the slide there and some assumptions associated with it. You can save more if you have a battery, which stores your surplus solar power. The disadvantage of it all, of course, is it costs you money. So I've suggested you work on a figure of about £35,000, which, based on the savings identified here, is 13.4 years to pay for it. By way of contrast, the ones I've got at home is just about 11 or 12, and they were installed 8 years ago, the payback period. So it's not a million miles from what other people experience. The components in the system do have a finite life, so you need to sort of bear that in mind as you go forward. And I've not included any loan costs, because I don't know what it would be. Going forward to the next one, we two exercises going on in parallel. One was looking at my own house as a sort of parallel, maybe a demonstrator project, and also Fletton House. The quotes that we got for here were just from 3 local companies, and they were done on the basis of, this is where we want to put it, this is how much electricity is consumed, what do you think? And as you can see, they come up with a variety of different proposals. That's essentially what will happen. People will propose whatever they want.
Are those recent quotes or from 8 years ago?
The last 2 months.
Right.
Current quotes.
Right, okay.
I mean, if you wanted to order them, you'd probably get those prices. And the important thing to emphasise is that there are a range of equipment So I'm going to provide you with a Ford, I'm going to provide you with a Rolls Royce, and I won't put any wheels on the Rolls Royce. That's extra, or whatever it is. So you can't necessarily compare apples and apples and pears. Two other things that we looked at. One is a solar diverter, which basically takes surplus power from the array and uses it to heat water. I do it at home. I'm sure other people do it. But basically during the summer we switch off the boiler, don't use the boiler, so we heat water over at night with cheap electricity and then top it up during the day with surplus solar power. And that provides all our hot water. The advantage of doing that, you've got a huge gas boiler down there. And switching that off in the summer, I think would have significant advantages, and you may find yourself saving a bit more than the 178 that I put there, because it's not cycling and so on. The other thing was have a look at whether there's any synergy with doing an electric vehicle charging point here. And there's a more detailed note on that. Basically, I spoke to the Energy Savings Trust, and they said HH was doing some work in Northamptonshire on installing fast chargers throughout the region. Finally got some feedback from them on yesterday. And basically, their vehicle infrastructure scheme, they've got some money from the government, they've developed a strategy, they're going out, they're identifying sites, they're going out for a procurement cost early next year, they'll assess them and then decide which ones they're going to go ahead and do. Their aim will be to get us big bang for their buck, get as much as they can from the money that they've got. They have had a look at Bratton House. It could fit in with the schedule. They're trying to do it on land that they own first, but if it's on other land, they release it. Legal costs shouldn't cost anything. Rent probably won't get anything back from the pound, and it's about a 15-year term. It's all set out in the note. The alternative way of getting a charger here is to go to a charge point operator who's got funding and get them to do it. Generally, much the same as the eBus scheme, they're all looking for sites where they can put big chargers and get a high turnover. So if you look at Arundel, probably the Waitrose car park would be more attractive than the back of Bratton House. So I think if you did decide to go for the Northern Pass approach, doesn't cost anything, seems to be fairly straightforward. You probably need to sort of a full council decision, yes, we want to try and do this. And then you go through the process, and I suspect that in 2 years' time you find that you fell off the bottom and it didn't happen. But that's my gut feeling. If the council really wants to put chargers in, I think the easiest way to do it is just to do an own and operate model, similar to the sports hall type approach. And so in the conclusions, I've said, one, you go for somebody's funding, and I suspect that in the current climate, you're going to keep falling off the bottom unless you've got a location like the Waitrose car park. There's a high turnover of people. The alternative is to fund it itself, and it's really a matter of what the council's priorities are. And my suggestion would be that you try and avoid spending time spinning wheels going into other people's schemes, because I don't think it's going to go anywhere. There are 4 fast chargers going to go into Ormington. Just had a look at the plans today, so if you want a fast charge nearby, there are going to be 4 down there. Right. Coming back, I think now on the last slide. Yeah. I would suggest, so remembering I was making 2 proposals, go for some quotations and get some funding. ask for quotations, ask them, give them the data, say it's based on this consumption, ask them to include the option of a battery, storage battery, let them decide what size battery to put in, ask them to put in a solar diverter, tell them the maximum you've got to spend is 35k and any options need to be below that. Ask them to say what the expected savings in terms of electricity cost and income are concerned, and ask for a 10-year maintenance plan. What should the council expect to spend over a 10-year period in maintaining it? Suggested 5 bidders, 3 local. These are the 3 that provided these quotes. Octopus Energy, I mean, for my own house, I got a quote from them. They seem very switched on. They've got their own in-house people doing it. And they also do innovative electricity supply contracts, so they may come up with something a bit more interesting. Current supply contract, I think, runs for another 18 months or thereabouts. Yeah. And then SolarCentric, who are apparently agents for solar batteries nationally. But if doing it that way, you would have 3 local. You would have a supplier, electricity supplier, which is a different perspective on the whole thing, and somebody from a national organisation, in case the local guys are missing a trick. And in parallel with that, if you're going to do that, you need to also think about where you can get money to pay for it. And then I've suggested some timings to work through, if you want to get it in place to enjoy the sunshine and electricity from next summer. End of my story.
All right. Thank you very much, David. Thank you. It's very thorough.
Two questions.
Jerry?
I just had a couple of things to add, not contradict, but just in further enlightenment, hopefully. I'm also with Octopus Energy. I don't know what they do for commercial organisations. So I don't know if they are only domestic suppliers or they do businesses. Anyway, what I would say is that, and it relates to solar diverter. I mean, the solar diverter is basically you're deciding whether you want to heat your water with gas or electricity. Up until this month, I've been heating my water at home with electricity because it was cheaper than the gas, because electricity would otherwise be exported at a very low price. This month, they've increased their export price and reduced their gas price. It's now actually better off to heat your water with gas and export electricity during the day because when the sun's shining. So, and it's also, buying cheap light-time electricity is also more expensive than my gas now. So, the solar diverter is an arbitrage opportunity really. So you can choose when to use it. You use it. It's got value because if gas prices go high, electricity prices are low, you can use it. But equally, if it's not, if the other way around, you can change your mind. So that's the opportunity. Mine is a switch, so mine was very cheap. I go and switch the switch on if it's cheaper to heat by electricity. The chargers, the simple 7 kilowatt AC chargers, they're about £1,000 a pop, maybe a little bit more here because you have to put the infrastructure and get the cabling there. As an EV driver, they're actually very useful. So if yes, they're not fast, but there's very few opportunities now to plug your car in overnight. And there are lots of people, you see on social media, there are lots of people who have family coming in their electric car, where can I plug in overnight? Well, you can't, because there's nowhere. Well, actually, half a dozen 7 kilowatt chargers would be quite a good facility, I think, for people who could come and plug in overnight. And no doubt people use it during the day as well. There are some people who will say, well, I'm going to be here for hours, valet class. I'll come in the electric car, I'll plug in, get an hour's charge whilst I'm here. That was the only thing I wanted to add.
Just on the Octopus, they're in the process of taking over Shell Energy, so they're about to become the largest supplier in the country, I think, with 6.1 billion customers, I believe.
Okay, interesting. Yeah.
2 questions. If we went with Octopus, say, would that tie us to them as a supplier as well? Or would they do solar panels independent of supply?
I think they can do it independently.
And secondly, 7 kilowatt charger, fine, that's something we're looking at hopefully having. The fast charger, if we went down our own it, operated route, what's the cost?
10k.
Right, and then we'd have to have someone come out and do problems and stuff.
Yeah, you need servicing. The way it normally works, if you have a charge point operator, so if you go that route, they will provide the servicing and so on for you. So you negotiate the deal.
Okay, usually we'd go through everything else, but I think we're gonna jump and discuss that now, really. So the actual item is discuss proposal for the installation of solar panels to display the house potential benefits inside next steps. I've got a lot of options here. So we'll just go for it. Max, thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to find the actual item.
Okay, in that case, Jerry.
I was going to say, I would have thought a sensible proposal would be to take a recommendation for council to have a full competitive tender process for solar installation, and that's probably all we need to do. And then we can, assuming then that goes ahead, we could then look at the charges later.
Funding, you need to take into account how you're going to fund it as part. If you don't have a competitive.
Yeah, okay, but I think there's a couple of options out there. We can look at the public funding loans, or we could look at reserves. I mean, it's not, particularly if it's nearer the 17,000 rather than 35,000. It's until we get the quotes, I think it's a little bit more difficult to think about funding. I mean, if it's nearer the 17,000 because we've subbed out on the battery and 30 kilowatts, whatever it was, kilowatts is enough, then you at that point you can maybe think about looking at it from reserves.
I think that's very sensible, actually.
Just on that point,
Yeah.
one thing we found in the last 6 months is lots of
Yeah, so if you
grants
sort of,
that are available to businesses are available to councils, which is okay. But it means that the pot we can dip into is much smaller than it should be, because we're really not allowed to bid for most funding things. Because they're businesses and private enterprises,
Right.
not councils, but yeah.
Okay. Max?
Well, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. From a principal point of view, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I just think the council should be seen to be doing something like this. The issue is really the cost, and in particular, being able to negotiate a successful and satisfactory loan. Assuming we can do that, then I see no reason not to go ahead. And you very clearly put the steps down and suggested a timeline for us, which is very helpful. But it seems to me the whole thing hangs primarily on getting a suitable loan.
Okay. I think we're in agreement that basically the actual item, the next steps is to go to full council and ask them if they're okay with us getting quotes.
Yeah, I think it's got to go to full council first
Yes.
to get a green light,
Yes.
because there's no point somebody inquiring about the loan if full council aren't agreed
Yes.
to finance it.
I'm happy to propose that we do that.
Okay, I'll second that. Terry, in favour, brilliant. There we go. Excellent. Nice and easy. I'm glad we're agreed. Right, gentlemen, if you want to, we'll get that sort of part, you go on dinner, Jerry.
Yeah, you have to stay for us.
That's
Whose jacket is that? That was Max's.
That's mine.
Max's. Yeah, sorry.
Well, thank you.
Yes, on my survey, please.
Okay. So actually, if we get back to so some minutes of the previous meeting. Sure, we've got a chance to look at these. Anything anybody would like to mention about these? Otherwise, I shall sign them. No.
No idea. Asked to the chair.
Yes, thank you.
Slightly awkward, I haven't got a pen. Just for yesterday.
You must be quite used to that. Can we have a proposer?
I should
Max,
propose
thank you
that
very much.
I'm
That's
not
it.
here, wasn't there?
Brilliant. We're all agreed. So that's that. So that brings us on to reports. To receive all of the reports, which we have received, which is good. So, Flatton House, we've done the first one, which was solar panels, we've just done that. So discuss volunteer action, the potential tenant, the old police room, decide next steps. So I'm guessing it's the police room's downstairs.
Yep.
Um,
So I think it's in the very preliminary stages at the minute, but I think I sent you the email thread. This is taking its time catching up for some reason. I don't know what's going on. Oh, here. Yeah, they're going to be possibly running the car scheme that's currently in Corby. And if they are successful, then they'll need extra space and be employing another person to run it.
okay,
So Emma's gone through what the price is.
Yeah.
And that we normally do a 2-year lease.
Yeah.
And they seem quite happy with that, but until they've had their meeting to find out what's happening. But basically, I suppose it's just essentially checking that you're okay with Volunteer Action having another office in this building.
so don't they currently have the thing on this?
2, yeah.
Yeah,
Two questions. Northampton's had it. They've got telephones in, but they're not using it at all.
No, they've taken everything out now.
So we don't get a rent payment for it at the moment.
No.
And secondly, there was a discussion last year when we were wandering around. It would be good for us to have as a place for people to pop in. It was a bit more resident friendly, but I suppose we wouldn't pay ourselves don't know money per year. So
No.
that would be less attractive. Is that something we want to revisit, or do we like volunteer action being down there?
Well, they're obviously a valuable service and they're always busy. They've always got people coming up here. In fact, I think they're people come into my office and ask for Volunteer Action more than they ask for us.
So
Quite
would they sort of move their person-facing thing downstairs and put their Corby office up here or something?
I don't really know at the minute. I suppose they'd have to work that out once they know exactly what the person, their daily routine is going to be. I mean, I don't even know how many days a week it would be. I mean, when Northants had it, they were only, I think, Monday to Friday, or was it Monday to Thursday, 10 till 2 or something like that. So, but yeah, I think it's just basically, Emma, just checking that you're happy. We're happy with them as tenants. They've been tenants for ages. So, yeah.
okay.
But it's not a done deal yet, is it?
No.
They don't know about Corby.
No.
So.
What does it say? It says something
It's
about
later-
they're putting in a
10th of
tender for it.
September, which is,
Yeah.
basically the end of this week.
They may be tendering for running a car scheme in Corby.
But
If they're
essentially, I
successful.
think we can agree that if they get the go ahead, then we can.
We're happy,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Discuss properties and open spaces tour feedback. Report findings. So it's the current and proposed use of old preschool areas.
Yeah,
Um,
that's why I've moved the workshop and property storage facilities further up the agenda this time, because both of those really need to be discussed together.
okay.
I mean, any of the bits that you want to discuss on the properties and open spaces feedback report. But one of the main ones was about what we're going to do with the preschool and with the situation with the workshop.
Okay, chat are interested. How long? Are they definitely going to move out of the courthouse?
No, they've not said. And to be fair, they started the Monday afternoons a little while ago, and I was here for the first one and nobody came. So she was not sure how successful it was going to be. And when Ian and I were talking about the workshop and how that could work, I then thought, well, chat like the fact that they've got their own entrance so people can park in the back, they don't have to walk through the building. However, it still could work because there's an entrance that side that takes you straight into next to the office area that was the preschool office. So we could still do it. The workshop was on this side of the building using the kitchen. It's a massive space. It's just dominated by that island, and then chat and the Dementia Club and all the other people could use this side. And then also, obviously, we've got this dilemma with this piece of land here, which is constantly, but well, since I've been here, it's been underused. Even when the preschool had it written into their lease, they never used it. It was just a dumping ground for rubbish. Now our lease is up in December 2024, and like Emma says in the email, we really need to start using it and neatening it up, because otherwise Northampton might just say, well, you're not really making good use of it, we'll take it back, which we could do with keeping it, especially if we're going to use that for the workshop space. Then we've still got an outside space for people that's secure, so like for the Dementia Club or chat or anybody like that, where they need a fairly secure outside space as an option, it still would be viable.
Okay. Right, thoughts on that?
Thoughts? The workshop information, that implies that there's a finite length of time down there, doesn't it? I misread that.
No, well, he wants us to sign the 5-year lease, and he's basically said if we're not going to do it ASAP, then he's given us 6 months' notice. But all the figures are there that Paul gave, although he's deregistering from VAT, it is substantially greater than what it was. Now, I know signing the 5-year lease means that kind of holds that, but in view of the fact that we have been talking about this quite a lot anyway, in terms of cutting costs and having a space that they could use if we put some thought into it, Emma and I were both just saying this is the time to decide, really, before we get...
Did Emma get anywhere with planning, in terms of whether we need planning for a gap?
Not, we wouldn't, same as with AMPS, we wouldn't for a container.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we're looking at trying to sort this out within 6 months, we might have to do something temporarily and then refine it as we go along.
Absolutely.
Which is sometimes quite a good way of doing something, because you can then work out what you need and how it works before. I always say this about moving into a house: before you start demolishing it and refurbing it, live in it for a little bit to see how the space works, because you can make a decision to knock walls out and then think, oh, if we'd have thought about this, we wouldn't have done that and that, we'd have done it this way, kind of thing. So and Emma and I were just saying it just seems a natural time to actually make this plan work for us, in terms of, you know, how things have come to a point.
A case for two questions. What's the legitimacy of us running downstairs to look at something when the meeting's live? Is that allowed, or is that not allowed?
I don't see why not.
Don't see why not.
Just look at that kitchen with the big island in it.
Yeah.
Because if we can
That's
see
fine.
that perspective.
Yeah, they'll just have to sit and watch nobody in the room.
No.
I'll show you. I need to show you something for this to make sense.
Sorry, everyone.
Bye bye.
See you
We'll
later.
be back in a minute. I think my mum or cousins. I think there might be a solution.
Everybody, if somebody comes into the meeting now.
Yeah.
We'll have to edit it to all like 3 seconds later.
Right. See if anyone's watching. No, no one's watching anyway. So.
They all turned off.
Sarah's gone, yeah.
So, yes, that was useful. In which case, then I think it becomes a no-brainer. We're going to try and move back here incrementally.
And so we need to get a quote for that wall.
Yep.
simple or expensive or whatever is best.
Do you think it should be double doors so it can be opened up again in sometime in the future if our requirement for usage
rather than
changes?
bringing it up, it might be better to actually have a wall, a door that you can.
Like a double door or something with you?
The only argument against that, I suppose, is if they're kitting or welding or
True.
whatever, but then do any of that dirty stuff out there, make sure the container is weldable and stuff, so we might look at some sort of vaguely temporary electricity supply.
Yeah.
But
And in the
a really
means,
clever wall.
in the meantime, what kind of response or what do we need? I don't really know what we need to say to our landlord of the workshop.
Well, it's got to be a phased transition, isn't it?
Yeah. When is the lease due at the workshop?
He wants it signed ASAP because we currently haven't got one. So with the last landlord, we had not a lease but a license, I think it was, and it was renewed every 6 months.
Okay.
So we've never had a proper lease. Well, it's now with our new landlord that he says he wants a proper lease. He wants the 5-year lease. And I think the email, is it in
Is
the
this
email?
carpet colour?
Yeah.
Um,
In the email, I think he says,
Really stupid question, but a 5-year lease means you're obligated to stick with it for 5 years.
yeah, because he doesn't give you a break clause until 3 years, I think it says.
So in terms
That's
of,
what bothers me.
Yeah.
in terms of how phased it is, it's phased within 6 months, I suppose.
Yeah. That's why I put even if the move and what the provision we make is temporary, we've got to do it. We've either got to say no, we won't, and we'll sign the lease, or yes, we will. Because it says here, look, the email's dated the 22nd of August. We've advised our client of his position. If you are not prepared to accept the proposals put forward by my client, my client will require vacant possession. With this in mind, my client is giving to you 6 months' notice of his intention to take back possession of the property.
Yeah.
So-
that's September, October, November, December, January, end of February.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm just trying to find, I'm sure I read somewhere. So when does the current lease expire?
We haven't got one. That's what I was just saying. It was a license, 6-month license. I don't know why they do that.
So there's an email on the supporting documents page.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen it somewhere.
On the 22nd of August, 6 months.
So
so end of February.
So we've had a month already in effect.
yeah.
Okay.
So we've already started paying the new fee because apparently he insisted on that, and Emma, I don't know whether she spoke to the mayor and
There was a
deputy mayor.
series of emails in August saying we had no choice.
Yeah. So we're already paying the new amount. But yeah, obviously our reluctance has been noted, and that's why he's said, well, you've got 6 months. If you're not going to do it as soon as possible, you've got 6 months.
Okay.
Okay, well, what is now 5 months?
Okay, so what do we need to decide right now? I think we've got a general consensus about what we'd like to do. So, do we need to take that to the full council and say,
Yeah, so
These
the
are ideas.
recommendation,
Yeah.
if one of you could propose and second it, that our proposal to full council is that we
Can I just-
start proceedings to move.
Before we do that, can I just say, is it worth us as a committee asking you to get some quotes and
Quotes.
prices? So when we go to full council in 3 weeks' time,
Yeah,
we say, here are the
okay,
numbers.
yeah,
Because then we'll only have 4 months.
yes, yeah, okay,
Yeah, we're going to go with those figures.
okay.
So just to clarify, we sort of itemised on reports, grand turf.
Yeah.
The sliding gate is something we didn't quote for.
Yeah.
A container.
Yeah.
Insulated, and ideally with electricity, you would get a connection to that. And then something in between the kitchen downstairs and the main room. They're the 3
Yeah.
key things, aren't they, that we can.
Just to make it usable, a
Yeah.
useful
Yes.
space.
So I suppose
Kitchen.
I'm going to say this as I think it, in case it's wrong. I'd like to propose that we ask the estates officer to get a quote for a sliding gate on that fence,
Yeah,
a 40-foot container insulated and adapted to a workshop and storage. And
Yeah.
a mechanism, door or wall to block off the downstairs big kitchen from the
Yeah.
main play store room.
Yeah.
With a recommendation at next month council to recommend that we move the workshop from East Road up here.
Yeah.
Within the next 4 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Does that cover all the bases?
I think that covers everything. I'll second that.
Yeah.
So all in favour?
Good.
Brilliant. Nice. Excellent. Good.
It's quite a big decision.
Yeah, that is quite a big thing.
Goes down here from
The hub, there's nothing, but obviously we talked about it. Well, that's not house. QDH.
On the agenda, sorry, do we need to discuss the preschool garden?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's a surprise.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can I propose
Yeah.
that we ask the estates officer, and the hub manager.
Yeah.
And the maintenance team, as and when they have any time moving the workshop, to start making it nice.
Yeah.
See if they can use it as part of that hub extension downstairs. Come up with some ideas and see what we can do with that.
Okay, yeah. That's proposal. I'll second that. Max?
Max, what are your thoughts?
Sorry?
That's all right. I think it's making its way for an answer.
Yeah.
I was proposing we ask the estates officer, hub manager, and maintenance guys to sort of start clearing.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't realise you were
That's
specifically asking my, yeah, I agree.
So I propose we're all in favour.
Yeah,
Happy days.
okay. Thank you for that. Right, QDH, and window cleanup, this is the paintwork.
We're on here, we're on the
And quotes, still in quotes for the paint. Various other works identified on the feedback report. 5K budget, 35 spent so far. Is that right?
Where are we? I'm lost now.
Sorry, QBH, in the supporting document,
Yeah.
in red, it says various other works identified on P&O's regional feedback report, 5K
Budget.
R&M budget, £35 so far, is that right?
Yeah.
We've only spent £35 of that
Yeah.
5K.
Yeah. Well, there's some of them, if you
We've still
look,
got a few
that
months to
spent
go,
zero. Yeah.
Indeed.
You've got to be cautious.
Okay. So there was something at the meeting last Tuesday, I think, wasn't there, about somebody reported something when they were using QVH.
There was some concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? That's a hatch controller thing?
It's something David read out at the end of the meeting.
That's right.
There'd been a concern, actually about the sound system, I thought.
There were a number of things, it was cleanliness, sound
But there was
system.
something else. It wasn't quite clear what the concern was. He didn't read out the detail, and he didn't share it either.
No, we haven't seen that.
Okay.
Do you know
Do
that?
you have any idea what we're talking
About the sound system.
No. So somebody had written to David
It's the microphones.
complaining
Yes,
about
of
a
course.
number of things to do with QVH.
Yes, I know who
One
that
of
was,
which
yeah.
was to do with the sound system, in particular a broken microphone.
Yeah.
Which I think we knew about
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
But it wasn't quite clear what the other things were.
Yeah, I think they've all been addressed. Emma went through them point by point. We
Right.
spoke to the cleaners. What else were they?
Oh, yeah.
What
That was
happened-
one of the issues that was in
Yeah.
a quote dirty state.
Yeah. The microphone, you know, the one that we found was faulty. So we brought it back. I brought it back here and was going to try and find somebody that may be able to fix it. Oh, Emma just said in the end, it might be just as well to buy a new mic. While I was away on holiday, Nobby had seen it sitting on my desk and took it back down to put a new battery in it. And of course, they went to try and use it. And I said to him, that's why it was on my desk, because Max and I had realised after trying new batteries, it wasn't working. So I think that's what that was. I said the other microphone works fine, and I think the reason the orange one's broken is because that's the one everybody uses all of the time instead of.
And that's the problem, because the instructions say specifically to use
the orange
one,
yeah.
not the one that.
So so I think that was just a misunderstanding between staff, and obviously Nobby trying to be helpful and taking it back down. So that will be addressed, but the other ones clearly do work, and there's spare batteries down there as well now. So and I think all the other issues, they're all smallish ones. The roller shutter door between,
that's it.
that what's happening is Tony had a look at it, and he thinks what happens is when people press it to come down,
And then
they don't let go of the button, and so it unravels and comes off the.
Oh, right, yeah.
So
it might be helpful if the sign was basically saying.
well, I said to get a marker and mark a red line and tell them in the instructions, stop when you see the red line.
Or you could actually just quite simply put a piece of wood on the inside, so it doesn't come down.
A certain, and we've also had it serviced as well, because when we didn't know whether we'd be able to fix it, I phoned a company and basically we should be having it serviced regularly anyway. So they came in on Friday, just gone to service it, and that's all been done now for a year. So it should work okay now.
Okay, so basically that's all been happening.
Yeah.
So QVH, right, we're still waiting for quotes for the painting stuff for the windows.
Yeah, I've chased him again. I might have to go elsewhere because I've phoned and chased him a couple of times, because we agreed just to go with the chap that has done quite a bit of work for us, didn't we? So I'll try him again tomorrow. I'll give him another phone call, and if he doesn't answer, I'll leave him a message and just say, look, can you let me know either way whether you're able to actually help us out in this instance?
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so we'll move on then. Courthouse. Same sort of issue with the painting. Although we have spent half our budget so far. Museum foyer still needs damp treatment, new skirting, redecoration, and new flooring. Annex Office 3, signed lease still not returned by tenant, but Workshop Unit 1 lease renewal was completed. So, a good bit bad there. Who was the signed lease by the tenant? Who was that? The Annex Office number 3?
It's the one I told you about last time. I think that's been resolved since writing this now, though. It was the one where he'd returned it to a different office, and then they'd forwarded it to the correct office, but then it got lost in transit. So it was, you have to go to an independent solicitor to get it witnessed and everything. And the gentleman in question, he just said, I've just not had the time to do it. He's paying all his bills and everything. He's just literally not had time to do it. Well, the solicitor's now contacted me and said, because a certain amount of time has passed that he's been your tenant, we don't have to make him do that little bit. He just has to sign the document and send it back. He doesn't have to make an appointment with the solicitor. So hopefully that will resolve that issue. Yeah.
Okay. What's going on with have we done the drone thing that we were going to do on that part of the courthouse? The roof.
Oh, yes. Yeah. There's
Did we approve?
No, we've not done a survey. All we've done so far, that's actually on here somewhere.
Okay.
In the notes, not as a decision, but just as a reminder.
Right.
Where did I put it? Got so many reports flying around, I forget where I wrote it. Because we did speak when we found those big holes in the roof on the south side, that we should be doing a survey like we do with the trees. We've Howard David offered free of charge to take drone pictures, but we also thought, well, we need to budget maybe next year to actually ask them for a quote and get proper surveys done on all the roofs and have that done. I don't know how often it's recommended that you have that kind of thing done. Because when Ian and I were looking around here, there's various slip tiles and bits and pieces. Not that we're noticing any water ingress anywhere, but you know, we should be having them like we do with the trees, regular service.
When did we last
Surveys.
have them surveyed?
The roofs,
Because the courthouse whole, was that 2019?
yes, I think it was it just before COVID? But obviously then the only bits we looked at was the south side there, and then we did have some work done on the west side that's facing the courtyard. There was a whole load of repointing done on that one as well. But we haven't, not to my knowledge, have we had any kind of roof surveys done on any of our properties certainly since I've been here.
Anybody got any idea what an average price for roofs? I mean, I'm guessing it depends on the roof.
No idea.
Probably more expensive than we wanted to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that something we should bite the bullet on now, or is that something we should build into next year's budget and hope to get through the winter?
Yeah, that's
That seems more pleasant.
I mean, I could ask Howard David and see what he thinks, because obviously he's taken some pictures already, and maybe get an idea of a ballpark figure of what he
That'd
thinks
be-
it would
that'd be
cost to
good,
do
I
a drone survey. Yeah, I can certainly do that.
Cool. Okay, courthouse wise, I don't think there's anything else. So, car parks, everybody's favourite. Drill hall. So the Fitz Holland?
Yes,
Their house is, I'm guessing, I've seen a metal thing on, I think it's a map on their house when I've been past it.
on the door they've got metal
they've got some
doors.
sort of front thing, but we were good, and it seems by looks of things, NNC is saying that everything they have in that area is doing as it should.
Yeah.
Um,
Although I've yet to see the report, they've said
Okay.
that they'll give me the S19 report once it's been published.
Right.
And obviously this all happened all together, so
yeah,
Northants got their notification, and then got the quote and the survey from our chaps on our bits and pieces. So I had a meeting with him so he could explain all of that. And then I phoned Anglian Water, and for some reason it's a good job I phoned them, because he said, I've got clear notation here of the 2 appointments where we came out, because I was the reference. And he said, I don't know what's happened. He said, there's nothing happened with it. So he said, it's gone into some sort of black hole. So he's resurrected it, and he said that he'll chase it and make sure something happens within the next 2 days.
okay.
But I'm pretty sure it was the Anglian Water people that spoke to the Fitch Hollands and said
Yeah.
they'd been told it was a possible collapse drain. That was
Yeah.
the wording they'd used.
Right.
So until obviously Anglian Water come back and tell us their bits are fit for purpose, then there's no, if they come back tomorrow and say their bits are fit for purpose, here's our report and here's our survey or CCTV survey or whatever, then I think we'll just have to go to full council and recommend we get that ACO drain put in, because then that's all of our bits done. So we can't be held responsible. One thing we did look at, which was really interesting, when the chap from Dino came and had a look, we showed him all the pictures and the video footage that the Fitch Hollands had showed us with, where we all saw it with the rain.
Yeah,
And he noticed straight away, so if you look at your Drill Hall car park, there's no pooling around your drain, and there's no masses of water running. So I think the ACO drain is a little bit of overkill on our behalf, but at least
It's a good sign.
it's a good thing. But he said there's clearly, even with all of that rain, you can't see it flooding off in the background. So that's a good video for us to have in terms of proof that our drains aren't blocked up, they're not pooled with water, and you can't see masses of water. The masses of water is accumulating in the road. That's where it's accumulating. So yeah, that was because I'd not noticed that. I'd just been looking at, yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? A quote for the Echo drain, do we remember what that was? That must have been July. I haven't looked at the document. Was it
7903 plus that.
7903?
Yes.
Oh, that's when I was Right. Because they're about £100 a pop, so digging a hole's quite expensive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I could dig a hole. From the number.
I mean, they're the first people that we came to for a quote. I'm sure we can look elsewhere if necessary. I think because they've always been really good. They've come out really quickly and they've always provided a good service. They were the ones we automatically went to. And like I say, when I queried some of the things on the quote, on the survey and on the quote, he just made an appointment to come in and have a meeting with us so he could explain it all to us. So, but yeah, we can always get some more quotes. But until we know what's happening with Anglian Water, there's not really any reason to do anything right now.
Just given the time lag of everything, because the next time we'll get to talk about it, it's the end of October. By which time we'll be able to make reference to full council in November. Then it won't get approved until December. Is it worth us reporting back to full council in October?
Yeah.
And just making the recommendation that subject to a good quote.
Yeah, we can. Well, yeah, it can be put on next full council for a decision.
We'd like to get the
Yeah,
actual
and in the
quote.
meantime, if you want me to get 2 more quotes, so then when it goes to full council,
Yeah,
it's end of October. Mid of October.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And we can give them that as a maximum figure.
Yeah.
They can approve that and get a better price.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Brilliant. Other than that, there was white lines need renewing. We talked about the Echo drain. Consider asking to buy back rifle range outbuildings to provide more parking spaces. Now, which?
There are pictures in here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So there's the lease or the land we sold.
But those two things part of the rifle range. It's not clear to me.
Yeah.
They're
They're their storage unit. I don't know whether they use them, but if you look on the,
I can see, it wasn't clear to me from the, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong bit now, that one. Yeah, it wasn't clear to me from the land registry thing. Quite. Anyway, so the point is that yes, in some respects, I think those two little buildings, in some respects to us, are more important than the larger actual range building at the back, because the trouble with those, the way that they're situated, they really take up space and they block things because of the doors.
Just one thing I'm going to tweak. The bits in red are the rifle ranges.
yeah,
The bits that aren't in red, are they ours?
yeah, this or this
So
bit.
we're
Yeah.
the stones between.
If you go to, not this one, the one that is south of that one.
Yep.
I don't know if you can see, there's that bit of garden. The person who owns the property behind clearly thinks that that's theirs. Because they planted it as a garden.
Do we do that? I don't know.
Whether they do it, this is another matter. But because that leads into the gate
It does, that's right.
at the back of whatever
It's
it's
just
called.
there's a space for a small car there.
Yeah.
And there's space for even smaller car there. But yeah, that.
But I don't think, so they've clearly tried to, shall we say, take that over, but I don't think they probably have any rights of ownership.
How easy is it for us, Lisa, to do land registry searches?
I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah,
I'm just looking for it.
It's there, but it
It's that
wasn't,
easy.
I couldn't work out from that quite what,
I've forgotten where I've put it. Where did I put it?
because the text up here,
Estates.
this is all,
No, let's just have a look.
that stake is different.
That's for this guy.
Yeah, precisely. I could have seen that tied up from,
Right, let's have a look. What have I done with it?
So the school, Humble School,
Mhm.
yes, yeah. These red bits.
No,
No, who owns the red bits?
the rifle club.
yeah.
Magdalena.
Okay.
Nothing to do with the
I
school.
think it
Oh, right, okay.
But didn't it belong to the school years ago?
It may have done. They've got a rifle range, one at Elmington and one at the army over there behind the sports. That's a 2-2 range. And the big shooty range, the big shooty range is out at Elmington.
Yeah.
So
Right, okay.
this may have been just
Interesting.
some point, but it's.
Sorry, I filed it somewhere safe and I can't remember where it is now. Hang on, might be.
Search a safe place.
Well, don't worry too much. I mean, all I was saying is that depending on costs, it'd be nice to have.
What we could do is say, find out who owns
Yeah.
that space, including
Yep.
that
Those
bit.
bits.
And if we find out who owns it, and then we can go from there. But potentially, yeah, we can say to them, look, how much for your
Yeah.
sheds?
Until we know who owns it. it's
Yeah, there's not a
material.
great deal we can do. But it's a good thought.
So between now and October, we find out who owns that. Because it's in a weird little bit of land, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It could be separate or
Yeah.
might be owned by someone in Sheffield,
quite,
particularly this mystery bit here.
Yeah.
Maybe the cricket club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we've got the documents somewhere. I just can't find them at the moment. I
Um,
might not have
If you
scanned
find
them.
them, could you send them to us so
Yeah.
we can?
Because the reason, right, so the budget is £500, most of which is already spent.
Yeah,
Right?
so we'd have to plan for it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
With the white
and
line.
that leads me on to, so we've got,
you could potentially apply to the community assets fund, couldn't you?
we could,
We have to make it an asset.
Yeah.
We do that a lot.
should we, because it's white lines need renewing, would we want to do that at the same time potentially as this other bit of land?
I think we need to find out about land first, because the way you configure it depends on whether or not we can have ownership
Yeah.
of that additional bit and knock those little things down.
Okay.
Until we know that, I don't think there's any point trying to think about the white
No.
lines
Okay.
personally.
And
So-
sorry, just the other thing is, I think I read it somewhere discussing the idea, maybe it was last in July, doing a year's trial with Parkmark or whatever with those schemes
Yeah,
work. Because until we can enforce the white lines,
Mm.
doesn't matter how pretty they are.
Yeah,
we can't
very true.
enforce them.
The last thing is stonemasons with board, the south boundary wall needs repointing.
Yeah. Well, again, and if you look at it, I'm not surprised. The question is, what the kind of costs involved are we
Yeah.
talking about?
So I think could we get a quote for that? Yeah? And as we've not got masses of budget left for that,
No, there's actually quite a bit of vegetation growing out of bits of it.
okay. I have no idea what. Lots, okay.
If it's pointing with lime, it's,
Yeah.
well, St Peter's, all the church was 40,000.
Quite.
Okay.
Yeah, but also you got the cemetery wall. So there's probably 10 grand here, 10 grand there, 10 grand somewhere else. It's those sort of numbers, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty good at it. I'm digging the track brain at the moment. as well.
You are, yeah.
Are you
I
going
mean,
to?
you're in the same area, aren't you?
It's still free. Cost.
Right. East Road. Vegetation needs cutting back. and removing work achieved through the tarmac. White lines need renewing. When this was previously discussed something about until the long-term plans for the car park could be confirmed, huge expense would be delayed. That kind of makes sense.
So we'd had, and I believe in the budget, when we'd initially started talking about, I got quite a few quotes for digging up where the roots are, putting root barrier down, and then retarmacking, and then redoing the white line. So very expensive quotes. And I think one year, I don't know whether it was last financial year or maybe the year before, we'd put aside quite a substantial amount. But then I think everybody was a bit undecided because we were, are we going to spend that money? And then when the lease is up, the owner sells it for development and we lose it anyway. So it all kind of got shelved, and we just tried to do the minimum that we could to keep it tidy. Obviously now, during the planning meeting, David touched on some of the bits about the local plan, and it seems that where it would indicate that the facility of that parking car park will be kept under the local plan part 2. So if we do have the ability to keep it, then we need to start thinking about what we are going to spend on it to make it right.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, you and I looked at it as part of the tour. And I'm not convinced that, given the current state of the lease, it's worth investing doing the deep root stuff that you just mentioned.
No, yeah.
In fact, I'm not even quite sure if we even have responsibility, and it's probably the owner's responsibility. But I think we should put some effort into cutting back some of the vegetation because it's clearly impinging.
6 o'clock the meeting is. 6 o'clock. It's been 6 o'clock for ages. I've been sitting waiting.
Don't worry.
I did say to them, you were here this afternoon, so I know she knows about it.
Yeah.
Bless
Sorry,
her.
So I just think it's worth spending a relatively small amount of
Yeah.
money just tidying up the vegetation because that's impinging on the actual top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Is that something we can do, or?
Yeah,
Well, it's certainly something that not being whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But also there was some uncertainty last time about who and which bits of land. Is that right? There's like one bit that's ours, and there's another bit that's uncertain, there's another bit that is someone else's.
It's technically none of it's ours. We
No,
lease.
so in
Yeah.
terms of where the lease goes, there was one island of land that was.
Oh, you mean-
Oh, you mean at the beginning
I
of,
think so, yeah.
opposite the drill hall? Not
No,
opposite the drill hall,
opposite
opposite
Jones
the Jones Strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all been sectioned off now, yeah.
Fencing, isn't it?
So I think it must be Northants.
Yeah, that's nothing to do with
No, I know. I phoned them a while ago and said you finished your own sign. Saying there's a recycling centre down here.
Yeah.
And they were very confused. But they've got a big fence around the sign saying recycling centre. Fair enough.
it. Just needs a good edge trimmer.
It does. But we got a good hit from it.
Because
I think so, they've got lots of kit.
You tell me health and safety again.
co-op car park meeting with new store manager.
That didn't happen because I booked an appointment with him at 10 o'clock yesterday because I forgot that I was on annual leave yesterday, so.
Who's the new store manager?
Uh,
I didn't know there was one. So I'm out of the loop.
The loop, so far. Yeah,
co-op. Well, Luke Thicken,
Yeah, Luke's.
the store manager, and then the chap that I was going to see. Hang on. Central England Group. Samuel Herbert.
Oh, that's one good friend. Someone.
Sam Herbert, yeah. So, but I've just said to him, let me know of another time and we'll meet up just to describe what's their responsibility and what's ours.
Public toilets. Regional feedback report. Okay. Is it positive?
Yeah,
Good.
when we looked at it, toilets smelt fresh and clean, nice and bright. It was just the middle cleaners cupboard that was a bit of a mess. So I reported that to them, and they said the problem with that area is they haven't got a key to it. So when they do their audit checks, their spot checks, they can't go in there. So they've now got a key. I've got them a key cut so that they can include that in their spot checks.
Who has the key? We have a key, but the cleaners.
The cleaners, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely have to. Yeah, I've seen them. Okay, so that brings us on to properties and spaces. Rugby bowls, tennis club, nothing to report. Rec. Right, okay, play area. Climbing frame.
Yeah, you've got some costs to approve in this section.
These, one of them's been out all summer, hasn't it?
Really?
The expensive one, yeah.
For 1,580, plastic climbing wall, complete with timber half hand lock steps and chain.
Wow.
And it's over our budget, unfortunately, because we'd only got £1,000 budget and we've already spent 52. But I think last time we were in this situation, we were able to take it from the youth activities budget of 5k, which we've not spent anything from. So-
Quite useful activity.
It is.
So are you happy to approve
I'm
those
happy
costs?
to propose it.
I'll second it.
Max?
If-
Val? Excellent. Tick. Bench 2 installation completed. Very good.
Is there something else, is there just one thing in the park or two?
One thing in that part,
That's it.
and then it's the other green spaces, another climbing frame.
Skate park. Is there next steps after the home lorry? Unfortunately.
So if I can just jump in, obviously in May or June, we heard that our bid for the lottery funding for the new lovely shiny skate park was unsuccessful. Doesn't mean we have to give up on that, but obviously it's harder to find funds. I think Emma had some idea about where else to look, but a lot of them have the deal that they pay for everything, but they don't go that high, or they pay for a bit if you've got the other funding in place. And it's that chicken and egg of how do you get the other funding if you haven't got the other funding. We've still got, I think, 75,000 in section 106 money sitting in a pot somewhere that we need to use on something. And over the summer, I was contacted by one or two of the users group that we were talking to about the design, saying, is there an option to, the half pipe that we have at the moment is enormous. It's like a death-defying Matterhorn half pipe. And they've gone back and talked to the guy who built it, Rampchild, as to coming up with an alternative, smaller use thereof, a little bit like some of these. But he's been quite hard to get hold of. He's been saying, can I come and talk to you all of August? And I said, yes, here's my number, and let's meet up. And he keeps saying, can I come and talk to you? I finally said, I'm talking here tonight, so what do you want to talk about? And what he'd like to do is, if we're okay with it, to come up with some quotes, which seems like a pretty long way of doing it. But I suppose the idea is, if we go down the option of cutting down the half pipe to make it more usable and more beginner friendly, that's going to eat into our chunk of the funds, which might rule out the better skate park. But if we sit on our hands, that skate park might never be reachable, and we still have a Matterhorn thing. So I suppose until we know the numbers, we can't really decide. But the numbers, it seems like it was a no-brainer. So we'll come up with a price and we know what we're talking about. But I suppose the question is, do we think we should keep applying and make the Magic Skate Park happen? Or do we give up on the dream and go with the other option? But until we know the cost, we don't know. The other thing that a lot of the users talked about time and time again was the problem with tarmac.
Mhm.
And falling on tarmac and small wheels on tarmac. And it might be that the half pipe and somehow sealing the tarmac with concrete or something might be a halfway house, but without the numbers, I don't know.
Okay, so can we ask them for some,
I will go back and ask for some numbers.
that sounds good. That's good. Okay, so the St Christopher's Drive play area, so this is the other quote.
Yeah.
So there's two options. Polydeck or Mexi deck.
So obviously the more expensive one's the longer lasting one.
So is that plastic?
Yeah.
And the other one's wood?
Yep.
It's not recycled plastic, by any chance,
I didn't ask her.
is it? With new,
Yeah.
750 means we don't pay for it again in 5 years' time, I suppose.
We've got the budget for it. We've got 1,000 and we haven't spent any of it.
So I propose we replace it with a polydeck.
I agree.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, everyone happy with that?
Yeah,
Thanks.
good. Brilliant. Snipe Meadow bench is in.
Yeah, looks lovely.
The cows are here. Hey,
How's it?
Norman.
And they work really hard.
Norman's not here.
What?
Norman's
No,
not here.
no.
He's been left somewhere else.
But within about a day, they'd eaten about a quarter of the field.
I know. It wasn't as high this time, was
No,
it? It wasn't as
it's
dense. So yeah,
They're
which is
trying
good because they
Yeah.
came late, so they needed to get a move on.
to move.
Consider resident request to purchase town council land,
OCT.
yeah, adjacent to their property. So,
Yeah.
which,
So you've got all the information there, and it's up on the screen now. It's a substantial amount, and that's existing.
oh, right.
Okay. That's what they're proposing they'd like to take.
Somewhere at Ashton Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the St Christopher Road.
So that's what they would like to take.
They're trees little wildflowers, so.
And I think I put in, historically, we had this request from some people in Culm Close because there's a little copse.
Yeah.
We just have to keep tidying up, that's right on their property. And initially, the council were interested in selling it to them. There was quite a lot of toing and froing about price. But one of the things the council did say was they would consider selling it as long as there was a clause written into it that no development would happen. It would just be kept as an extension of their garden. So on that basis, to look at this and approve this, we'd be going against the principle that we set back then.
Can I just add a bit to the Corn Close one?
Yeah.
Because I went up and looked
Yeah.
at it, and it's a lot of trees growing, and it's actually quite difficult to maintain it. So in a way, letting the owner of the house do it was a good idea. But we got advised, didn't we, and it was too expensive for them. They didn't
Yeah.
want to spend that kind of money. And you've always got the thought that if you do it too much, it's the thin end of the wedge situation with people all over the place wanting to buy.
Well, that's a concern with this, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah,
Instead,
yeah,
someone
that's-
comes in from the other side than someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so on that basis, when I took it to planning weren't keen at all
Yeah.
on the idea. So
Is anybody in favour? Or are you exploring it further?
Sorry, what I didn't.
Is everyone in favour of
Oh, I
exploring?
see, no, I'm not.
No.
Not particularly.
No.
Not hugely.
No, okay, we'll just say thank you, but no thank you then.
Okay.
Right, trees. To discuss residents' offer of their late father's large fir tree currently growing in the garden for OTC's use as an annual Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Estates officer, update and suggestions to some next steps. Okay.
Yeah, I went to see the lady, and it's a really nice gesture because obviously their late father loved Christmas, and she just thought they're going to be selling the property, and their dad had nurtured this tree from a tiny sapling. It's too small for our marketplace because it's less than 20, I would say about less than 20 foot. So when I was talking to Emma about it, she said, you know, if we can't utilise it, then maybe we could say to them to offer it to Abbott House, Prince William, or
Yeah.
Arundel Primary School for use there. She did also ask about a plaque, and I did say to her that for more memorials and things like that, you know, you can approach the council for a plaque on a bench and things like that.
Yeah.
Or if she does approach one of the schools. But just wanted to know what your thoughts and what you think we should suggest with that.
Well, as you say, it's too small to be used potentially, but offering it to somebody else, I think, is not a nice gesture.
Mm.
That said, how it's transported from their back garden to wherever.
Well, that was the other concern Emma and I had, because
It's
it would probably be,
You're not exactly going to get it through the house. are you?
no. I mean, they've got access to the side, but that's what Emma said. She said, I would imagine they'd be assuming
Right.
we'd pay the cost of putting it down and moving it, which again is a cost to us, so.
Because although you say it's too small, it looks to
It's
me
substantial, yeah.
quite substantial.
A large small tree.
Stupid question, it's in the ground, isn't it? There's somewhere I know. Well, they said it was an annual tree. I thought, well, once you cut it out, it's not very annual.
No.
No, it's just a shame. We could have it at the front here, you know.
Well, Emma and I did
You can see the
discuss
top
that,
of it.
but yeah,
That's right, and it goes into the ground.
yeah.
Have we got the other tree sorted for this year?
Yeah, I think so. I
Where
think
do we acquire our tree from?
Fotheringham Trees always donate one to us.
Oh, I think.
Yeah, and they arrange its delivery and everything. So, and yeah,
And is there anywhere else in town that you could get it just as a one-off?
Outside St. Peter's?
Well,
Outside St. Peter's? Church Christmas tree?
I'm not sure where you put it, but
I mean, if they really want it, 'cause why can't they just leave the tree where it is?
I think they just thought it'd be a nice idea.
Sort of thing.
I think that's all we can do, really. Go
Yeah.
back and say to them, you know, have you thought about offering it? Thank you, but it's not going to be big enough for what we need. But have you thought about?
Yeah.
I mean, Abbott House would be lovely if they'd be able to do
Absolutely.
it. Residents would love that, wouldn't they?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's.
So shall I do that? Yeah.
Stick it outside.
Well, again, Emma and I said about that and doing it ourselves. But I mean, if you see the effort that it takes to put the Christmas tree up in the marketplace, I mean, obviously there's a ready purpose-made hole there, but then you've got all the staking, you've got 3 people involved. No,
Physically getting it out of
No.
that garden's not going to be trivial.
no. And you can't go to Barnwell Garden Centre and get one of those little stands for them. They have to be literally really hammered into the ground. So it's all of that you'd have to consider. And whoever, if anybody did accept it, they'd obviously have to consider doing all of that.
Yeah,
make
it's a
it
very
safe.
kind gesture, but
It is.
The logistics of it are quite tricky, really. Yeah. So are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unfortunately so.
Okay. St. Peter's Church. Finally received permission from the diocese for the removal of the Norway maple
Yeah.
to Bird's Nest. We found when Tree Sowing
Yeah.
came the other week for removal, so new date to be confirmed.
Yeah, he said he's just going to keep an eye on it, and when they're gone, because initially when he found the one bird's nest, he thought, oh well, I'll just at least start doing the trimming the other side gently. But he went around the other side, and there was I think a dove one side and a pigeon the other side. So he said, I'll just keep an eye on it, and as soon as they've vacated, I'll get it sorted.
Okay. Cemetery. Date yet to be confirmed for the clearance at the top of cemetery to provide extra burial space. Contractor confirmed it will be done before the end of September.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, it is. Especially with the weather. I said to him, if you can
Next tomorrow.
see the good weather and get out there.
Okay. Community payback appear to be making progress with the rails. That's good. That's good news.
Have they painted one end of it?
I think, they looked quite shiny last time I was down there.
Yeah. I keep going down on Sunday and listening, but they're still August, so they're
Yeah.
probably getting around.
Wall repairs, quite substantial plan for next year, financial year.
A completely independent stonemason that I've not dealt with before was doing some work somewhere in Oundle, and he'd said about the drill hall car park wall and suggested a quote, and I said to him, well actually we are looking to start getting quotes for the cemetery wall if you want to have a look at that. So he went and had a look, and then emailed me and asked me to phone him, and he said it really depends what you want to do. If you just want it raking out and repointing and making good, it'll happen again, because unless we remove those trees, it's just going to keep happening. So he said you could do it the proper way, take down the wall, cut some of the roots back, try and get the wall as straight as you can and redo it. He said, I don't know what damage the soil behind it will have done to the stone. So he said you could be looking at one figure, assuming all the stone's reusable, but when you take it all down, it might not be. So it's not an easy job, and it's not going to be a cheap job. So.
Okay. Yeah, that is definitely something we're going to need to.
Is it worth trying to meet him on site, just, because obviously I took a photo of the worst bit, which is when the trees push the wall out. It's a big tree, it's a lovely tree. If we could put a bulge out there.
It's the highways, yeah, they do. I think you'd have to approach highways though, wouldn't we? Because if you're infringing on the.
But that's right, but if they thought the trees protection is more important,
Would come with a cost.
Yeah.
it would come with a cost, but that would also minimise the amount of work.
Yeah.
And you could tie it in there and there, because the rest of that will sound.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that needs treating ASAP, because that's the bit that's loose, and very soon those stones will be there.
Yeah.
And when they go, the whole thing will start going. So, I'd be happy to try and meet him or someone down there
Yeah.
to talk it through.
That sounds good.
And just say, can we do this? And if we get a date, we can get Helen Harrison there, we can really say, do you see the logic of this? And see what she says.
That sounds good.
And then we can sort of budget some of this stuff in for next year.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. The chap that approached me is because he also said about he'd noticed a couple of damaged stones on the Queen Victoria Hall, which we'd noticed, I think not this year, last year, which aren't serious. But he said, "Do you want a quote?" So I mean, it'd be interesting to see how he quotes in comparison to everybody else. Okay, I'll send you his details, and then you can.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay. James Strong Centre. Regional feedback report.
Oh, you've got some other bits on there,
Yeah.
Jamie. There's some more points that you've got to
The
approve.
agenda.
Yeah.
So there's
Oh, sorry.
very valuable request.
So there is it. Okay. Proof grave owners request that OTC remove some lower hanging branches from the walnut tree, which currently impede finding access to tend the grave.
Yeah, if you look at the picture on the screen there, these are the grave owners and it's not just there, the whole thing is hanging really, really low. So if we lopped off some of these.
This is, there's a broader issue as well. It's one of the trees I raised last year and the year before, in that we've taken one tree out from a grave,
Yeah.
And this one's in a grave as well. And then I took quite a few buddleia and sycamore saplings out in August. But I think absolutely taking the branches out is the right idea now. But it could be that at some point we have to.
Somebody else, yeah.
So otherwise it's almost like we need to audit where the trees are, because there's quite a few. And this is probably the next biggest apart from one we took down.
Yeah.
But I think it's an unmarked grave, which makes it more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's complained about the tree, this person that's approached me said they love the tree, and it's absolutely laden with walnuts this year, but she just said it's just getting a bit tricky. So, I mean, I went and had a look, and I think our maintenance, I don't think we'll have to have a tree surgeon. I think they'll be able to just lop off enough so that people can go underneath it. I think you'll need a chainsaw though, not loppers. I think it's too thick.
Yeah, squirrels won't be happy.
No, they won't. Should we give people a walnut warning before? If you want free walnuts to pickle,
Yeah.
get them there
Come
now.
down Sunday.
So you agree with you for Greece?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, so approve grave owner's request to plant a wren rose in the vicinity of their 2 family plots, one of which is a war grave.
Yeah, so they're directly behind the chapel.
Okay.
This one is literally the very grave next to their fence. Various family members, memorials to, if they're not buried there, they're memorials to them. And then their other family member, come on, is further back. So they're just here over this side, and this is the other one. Now, yeah, at the top part.
For a long time now, I can't give you a date as to when it was decided. We've not really allowed people to plant things on their graves. have we?
No, I've already told them not on the grave, but in our cemetery rules, it says that they can plant a shrub or whatever in a part of the cemetery that's suitable.
Fine.
So I said to her that I know you
Fine.
won't be able to put it on the
Yeah,
grave,
on the grave,
but
yeah.
my thoughts were here at the top. If you see here, this bit here, this is just a wild sort of boundary where there's just stuff.
Yeah,
So I thought maybe, I mean, it'll end up being swallowed up, or we might have to keep an eye on it and strim round it. But I just thought over this section here wouldn't be intrusive. It wouldn't affect anything. It's not burial spaces
yeah.
at the minute. It might eventually have to be cleared depending on what happens. But I thought maybe there.
So what is a wren rose particularly?
It's a type of rose. I looked it up. It's a pink rose.
Okay.
And they would undertake to look after it.
Yeah, I mean, I did say to her, your grave and anything that relates to you are supposed to look after it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, are we happy with that?
Yeah, as long as the maintenance, as Val said, is understood.
yeah.
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 The only other caveat to put in would be at some point in 5 or 10 years' time, it might be that we have to look at using that
That's
land.
fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
with that caveat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not right to land.
There is, so something else actually. Discuss suggestion of installing a letters to heaven postbox in Handel Cemetery inside next steps.
Yeah.
Now, I can't sound familiar with.
Apparently it's been on TV, and if one
Jeremy
read-
Vine show,
and if one
apparently.
reads the Nene Valley News, as I did pick one up in Bolton this week, Rawn's have installed one.
Have they?
Yes, they've got a photo of their mayor by it, but they've given theirs a different name. Have you got the Nene Valley News out there? No, don't worry. But they've gone, because one of the points discussed about this was that letters for heaven, they call it a memory letter or something.
Yeah.
You buy at the cemetery paper with wildflower seeds in,
Right.
and then the paper is then planted, and wildflowers grow, which sort of makes maybe more sense than just.
Yes.
paper letter,
Yeah.
But what are the costs of it?
Yeah, I couldn't see the cost. You say there's no budget, but I'm not sure what it's going to cost. Unless it's,
He's not come back to me. I've just realised he's not come back to me. Yeah, I phoned him and said I needed the quote by this meeting, but I've just realised it's not come back to me. I forgot. I think when I realised there was no budget left for it anyway, I didn't worry about it too much. But
we could potentially prioritise it for another year.
yeah, if you like the idea. I mean, Lisa obviously gave her opinion on it, and I think she agreed with what you said, letters to loved ones rather than letters to heaven, because she said if, I mean, you probably wouldn't be buried in the cemetery if you weren't religious, I don't know.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Although I do know people that have been buried in there that aren't, their family
Yeah.
chose to bury them in there, but they always said to me they weren't religious. So, but yeah, I think that's quite a good idea, not calling it necessarily letters to heaven,
Yeah,
because
I
some
think
people
more
don't
to
have.
cover something like that.
Yeah,
Okay, so, should we say then, look into costs and
Yeah.
potentially,
I'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
Hopefully it'll
okay.
have come back with costs
Yeah.
by then, and you can consider it a bit further. So we'll
Yeah.
defer it to the next meeting.
right, Joan Strong. Finally. Regional feedback reports. Was there much?
The fence, I think we thought the fence looked a bit shabby.
Is that the fence onto the road? Or
Yeah. Yeah, the boundary fence. It's that like cross sticks.
Yeah, yeah.
And Nobby said they're a nightmare. They are a nightmare to paint. So when Max and I
Yeah,
looked at
yeah.
it, we said maybe a short, close board, just normal fence would look neater.
To try and paint or repair them as they are,
Yeah,
it'd be cheaper in time and cost to effectively replace it.
yeah. And it does, and it's not very sturdy either. So there's bits that have
No.
dropped off, and it just doesn't look very nice. It desperately needed weeding as well. So I've not done it yet, but I was going to email the scout leader and just say, are you able to have a few afternoons weeding?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's, although we're responsible for the maintenance of the building, I don't think we should be responsible for weeding it and keeping it looking clean and tidy at the front. I think that's
Perhaps
part.
look at the lease.
Pardon?
We should perhaps look at the lease, but
Well,
then
there's a
say
lease on
say to the scouts and guides, anyway, they should be doing
They
it.
did it as standard, yeah. I mean, the fact that they replaced the kitchen and they've done elements of stuff that you'd think they would expect us to do. I kind of thought they would do that kind of thing.
Well, it's been the summer and they had a holiday. or something.
Yeah.
So would we be doing this ourselves?
The fence.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think we're responsible for those kind of
Yeah, I
things, the
think
roof
so.
But in terms
and
of
anything.
would we be doing it? Am I next one on the jobs list?
Um,
Or are we getting a contractor? Because we've got a time
I
versus
think
money
it should
issue.
be contracted, surely.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd probably be better to.
Okay, so shall we get some quotes?
Be more efficient and
Yeah.
get the job done.
Okay. Okay, good. Markets. The market manager reports new procedures in place appear to be helping.
Yeah, there's not been so many reports of people barging in on the market day.
Is there anything in the market rules that says that people have to, if you've got a stall, because I remember we talked about this before, where people leave early and it doesn't look great, basically, if you've got one or two store members left on a Saturday or a Thursday.
I can say that every fair that I've ever attended with my dearly beloved wife has got that clause in saying you can't leave early.
Mm.
Every single fair I've been to, people do.
So is there any way we
It's
can,
enforced, they should
yeah.
lie in front of the car.
You see, at the Christmas market, we do enforce it, and which is one of the reasons we changed the run time from 10 till 5 this year, because 12 till 7, there was last year maybe 6 stores that sold out by 5. So they didn't moan about it at all. They just shut the front of the shop, went off and probably did some shopping, had a coffee or whatever. But then they had to wait 2 hours before they could start packing up. So we thought we'd change the run time and see if that helps. But because the Christmas market is so big, that's why nobody ever quibbles it. They just know that they've got to stay there until the packing up time. But obviously with the farmers market and the Thursday market, it's so much smaller scale. It's easy enough for them to get out without causing havoc. And if they've sold out, if they're just standing there with an empty store, to me that would look as bad as them not being there,
Yeah, okay.
because that's why they leave. Either if it's really not busy or they've sold out.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be standard for any market.
I think so, yeah. And it's when you think about how early they're on the road as well, certainly like the fish man, I think he's up and out, isn't he? Collecting his fish at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So for them to us to say to him, right, you've sold out, but you're not allowed to leave for another
just
2
all I'm
hours.
thinking is just in terms of if you've got 1 or 2 market stores left, then you're still closing off all that parking. It's quite a lot of parking space that you can understand to an extent why some people look at it and think, why can't I park there?
Yeah, you can understand it, but bearing in mind as well, we've got the right to shut it till 6 o'clock.
It's shut, it's not open for parking anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if
It's
we're
a
not
road
marketing
closed
on it,
situation.
still use it.
Yeah,
And even if you've got one stall, it's about public safety.
Safety,
as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Fixing cars with
This is like Illicat and might be going to buy an Apple now.
Yeah, okay. So, town events. So we've got approved costs of traffic wardens for Remembrance Parade and the Christmas market. And
They were quite bossy in their email, weren't they?
pardon?
They were quite, was it me or were they quite bossy in their email? Here's the rate to get it sorted now.
Is that what they said?
I'm sure there was maybe I've overestimated it.
I
You
got,
get confirmation, so looked out for investors.
did I send that out this afternoon, the
Yeah, they said
confirmation?
11:25 and then they say give us confirmation.
Yeah.
They told us now.
What was his name? Jonathan?
Actually. Who's like?
Ashley, that's it. Ashley. He was, yeah.
So £481.58 for Remembrance Parade. Christmas market 457.
Yeah,
Why is that so much cheaper?
because it's time and a half as opposed to double time.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, you can remember on Sunday.
Sounds
Saturday.
okay to me.
Same number.
How's it compared last?
Oh, it's about the same. The problem is, for a couple of years they'd undercharged us. So 1 year it came back significantly more, and I went back and I was like, that sounds quite a lot for exactly the same hours. And they admitted to me that they'd only charged us for 1 person, but sent 2. So she said we have undercharged you the last couple of times already.
You continue to charge us.
Yeah.
One person does then too.
So,
I'm happy to propose that we approve
I'll
both.
second it.
yeah.
everyone in favour? Yeah, brilliant. Okay, that's easy. Approved cost for Santa's Grotto, Mikey.
Indeed. We're all excited to
Yeah,
get
Father
that.
Christmas outside.
What?
Just like Father
No,
Christmas
No,
outside.
do not. Do not.
Well, we haven't got a Santa at the moment.
Uh,
well, if Jamie's not working, we need to know quite soon, though, Jamie.
Staff changes.
Santa will fix it for you. Seems like a lot of money for a market.
But it's a Santa hat. That's
Oh,
what.
it's the Santa hat.
It's unique. They're the only people that do it.
It's like Santa hats. Oh, well, in that case, the Santa hats. Have you got 2 of the quotes from Santa and
Non-Santa
Land
hats.
or something?
No.
Who said, no, we can't do it.
Be
No.
careful, there might be children watching this.
Yeah.
And that's fine, just because Santa puts invoices out doesn't mean anything. He's a business-minded man. He's running for 2 centuries.
Yeah.
I will propose it that we accept it, because it was around this amount last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, they don't put it up by very
The
much. Yeah.
ghast of the cost.
And where's this going to go?
Outside the Talbot,
Yeah.
where it was last year. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have Santa's sleigh, the Rotary Santa's sleigh, then Santa's grotto,
And then the reindeer.
then the reindeer. Yeah, all outside the Talbot, which looks lovely.
In his best elf.
Depends, I'm teaching, I've got some, but if I can fit another thing in,
Um,
if I can elf out.
yeah,
So he's proposing it. Who's seconding?
I'll second
Yeah. All in favour?
it. Yeah,
Over.
it is, it is.
The voice of Grinch slash Scrooge slash.
Yeah. Can we have a Grinch hut?
Oh, great idea. I would man the Grinch hut. Take the bunting down, man the Grinch hut. That's me. I'm ready for it. I've got a hat that says Bar Humble.
Yeah. Environment and flood water issues. Bedford Road resident has been updated on progress with NMT and Anglian Water.
Yeah,
Kind of
we've already
dealt with
touched
that,
on
yeah.
that,
We did
but yeah.
didn't we? Street lights, there's nothing. CCTV. 6 monthly maintenance visit carried out, all okay, that's good.
Yep.
Energy and electric charging. Charging
Chargy.
have been in touch again,
Chargy.
now in a
So-
position to proceed.
Yay! They were. Yeah. In June, July, lots of conversations on the phone. And yes, no, absolutely. Yeah. Absolute. Go, go, go. I think it was you, Lisa, that put them on because they were going to get on a call with you, weren't they, at the end of June?
Yeah.
And I suddenly thought in August, I said, and I got in touch with them and they went, we've now been told that we can't go ahead. So all that kerfuffle back at Christmas when they said no, and then they said yes, they now said no.
So the whole deal's off now, is it?
Seems to be, until they decided it is, but I can't be bothered doing them anymore. So the idea was they would fit 2 7-kilowatt charging points for free in the car park last summer, I think it was. And then would charge people, we sorted out for electricity, people would get free charging points in the town, charging points. And here we are a year and a month later, and they've remained for the second time. So we just need to
I
find
think we just got to drop them and try and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
something else.
But they are dropped.
Okay.
Yes, there's no rebound.
I mean, we've lost 6 months as a result. haven't we?
Yeah, certainly 6, maybe 12. Which is frustrating.
But now it's being incorporated into the transition Oundle.
So what's the plan B?
Plan B is we find someone else.
Yeah.
So it's easy for us to fit a charging point. We can just put a plug in the wall. Easy. As Jerry said, it's about £1,000. The difficulty, as I recall, is we then have a plug in our wall that I can come and plug my car into for free.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Precisely.
News for me. Bad news for our electricity bill, potentially.
Yeah, no, I get all of that.
So
you need.
we then have to have someone to manage it and charge it. Right? The good thing about that is they're going to do all of that.
Yeah.
So
Because otherwise it's essentially just no different from what you've assembled at home.
correct. And we went around this a bit in the car park a few years ago with fast chargers and car wash on that. Waitrose didn't want to pay for last time we tried. So we've sort of been around the houses.
Well, Co-op did say that they're making their own arrangements, weren't they?
Yeah.
But I never heard anything from them.
Nothing on the.
The company that was mentioned before, Octopus, I
Yeah.
think they potentially do them, do they not?
They do. Last time I checked, they only did domestic. But I'm happy to find out if they do commercial.
I know somebody who works there, I could send them an email.
Sounds good. Well volunteered.
Well,
Well, good at this.
I think they used to work there, well, they used to work there, whether they still work there, but I'll send them an email and I'll
So you know somebody who wants to run an octopus. That's fine.
because they've got an office in Leicester,
All right. Do we know who's well known in Leicester?
apparently so.
Yeah,
I'm also
right.
going there tomorrow.
That's as
So
volunteer.
I'll contact Octopus and just see whether it's something they can do.
Excellent. And then
And then we could get them to formally quote if that's the case.
Excellent.
take a big cue as well.
Yes, okay.
Right, that brings us to any other business for report only?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Because I came late, I'm completely informed,
Yeah.
and I do apologise, because I missed the one bit I really was interested in, which is what's going to be happening in the room downstairs where the preschool was.
Yeah.
We went, if
Are
you
you able
watch,
to
if you
tell?
watch the video, you'll find there's a 15-minute break when we all went downstairs
We
to have a
literally
look.
went
He
upstairs
disappeared
and
off
I got
camera.
So what we have proposed is that we are asking or instructing one of the two, the estates
Asking.
officer
Right,
get a quote for a 40-foot container out there,
excellent,
a sliding gate instead of some of the fence, and a divider / door / wall for the kitchen area from the main room downstairs.
yeah.
And we are recommending, if those are lovely prices, to full council that we start the move of the workshops up here
To the container
to the
or?
container
Yeah.
and the kitchen downstairs with an external exit,
Yeah.
leaving the room downstairs available for use.
So my question is, I mean, it's wonderful, it's what I was hoping. Are users able to store things like the Lit Fest is desperately wanting to use the room
Okay,
for Lit Fest talks?
yeah,
But one of the things that would be nice, because sometimes we do the actual performance as an interview situation with two people,
Yeah.
two chairs, but to raise them up a little bit on a bit of a dais is what we want to do. Would there be any possibility within the new arrangements for us to have a dais? It would be, rather like we'd have to have storage for.
Is it worth for the next meeting getting the Litfest to send us a proposal of what a dais looks like
And
and how
what
it
they, yeah,
closes down? Val, could you get that sorted?
A price?
Well,
Or
just give us an actual,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
proposal.
because then we'll know.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
Because I mean, it would say, other people could use it for lectures and things.
so what, they specifically want the preschool area, do they? That's their chosen, because didn't they used to either use this room or the Blackthorn room for bits?
We've used both,
Yeah,
but it was a thought that we
Yeah.
could use downstairs. It's yet another council room, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about furniture for down there, because obviously Morag said she'd like some comfy chairs and some bits and pieces, and I was going to update you on this anyway. We did talk about maybe utilising some of the stuff we've got. So like the couch that's in the Blackthorn room, which we thought, or I thought wasn't used very much. I've now been told it is used by Maureen's group. I've forgotten what the group is that come in. The young people that use the tennis table and everything, and they're normally in the Blackthorn room, and they do sit there apparently. And some of the sewing classes, they sit there and they'll have a coffee and sit at the end. So it is used. And then I think we discussed it, and we were saying we've got to be very, very careful, because if we buy certain furniture, it might appeal to one user but not the other. And if it can't be moved out the way,
That's why I'm thinking about
Yeah.
storage, because then the dais could go in any of the big rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, like Film Society,
Yeah.
who quite often have a speaker as well as the film.
The Docs Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
See, they store all their stuff in that tiny little room near the Cotterstock room, don't they?
Right,
They store their big, I don't know what it is it their sound system or their projection system?
That's a sound system and a projector
Yeah.
that they have, and screen, more to the point.
yeah. So
Screen.
it might just occurred to me anyway that it would make the rooms more flexible if we could have something like that.
Well, the more proposals we have from users of what they potentially would like to do, the better we will be able to equip the room so that it suits everyone. So if you get them, like Ian suggested, to
Yeah.
tell us exactly what they're thinking.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay,
Just wanted to get that in before we stop.
Ian, anything else to report?
It's a report leading to something else, which I can't do, but it's still a report. On the regional grantor document, when we were in the plant room downstairs, I was saying that we used to use a guy at the school from Ash Buildings in Corby, who's worked at lots of places in Bedford, etc. And he's really good at looking at connectivity of building systems and stuff. A guy called Gary Heard. I found him, he's alive.
Okay.
And I thought it might be worth us inviting him over to have a look at the plant room and just have a look. Because we was talking in there saying we've got one contract with boiler people, one with control people, and one with tank people, but no one looks after the whole thing. And I don't think any of us have the expertise.
No.
So I might see if he's free at some point in the next few months, years, days, weeks, to come over and have a look. And maybe to start talking to him, because I've been around all the school boiler rooms, all the school buildings, and he knows stuff. So
Okay.
he'll be a good man to have on board. So he's alive. I mentioned the report. That's why I should have put it in the agenda.
Okay, good. That sounds good. Max?
Yeah, there's one thing which is on the spreadsheet of action points, which is items not on the agenda, the electrical bike scheme. Is that just something that's going to go to full council? It's not quite clear why it's here. It's about you liaising with TC, signing up for a scheme.
Is that from this
Wasn't
week?
I think that, yeah.
That's,
I'm
yeah.
just kind of confused as to.
Sorry, yeah, I should
Is
have
it
probably
just-
taken that off there, because it was
Okay.
probably the
No,
bike
it's
scheme
fine.
over
I'm happy
summer.
to report. North Northampton Council, about a year ago, started the scheme whereby, I'm very happy to show you one, there's one outside.
Yeah, you using it.
Borrow.
It's very flash.
I've been using it for 3 months now because they don't know what to do with it. So they were letting businesses use, like Rushton Lakes or Northampton Hospital, use this fleet of bikes for a month to let individuals see if they could make that modal shift from a car to a bike. And it was advertised in one of their leaflets that Emma sends around. I made contact with them in June saying, hey, we've got some businesses. It was apparent they were desperate for someone to use them over the summer. So they volunteered to give us, the town, and it was mainly the school, but the business association had availability in the town council office too for August and September. It was a 1 month trial for individuals, people signed up. They then extended it to the end of October.
Right, so I think I understood all of that.
Yeah.
My question was slightly different, and that is, do we need to consider post-trial whether we adopt this more generally, or is it just simply trial, that's the end of it?
One of the questions that I've asked them, and it's been interesting working with Northampton's Economy in Place or something or other they're called. And they're all very nice, but they're all slightly confused about what their job is. And they're very keen to get Northampton better exposed in Amber because they're very aware that they're not. At the moment, they have a legacy document under proposal.
Right.
I don't know who it's with. One of the suggestions is, do they keep this fleet of bikes? Do they get rid of this fleet of bikes? Do they give them away? Do they sell them? Once we know what's happening with that, it might
Okay,
be.
so they
we
have a
would know.
clear plan anyway. Yeah.
They have no idea. They've got to the end of the month, they don't know if they've got more funding or no funding. So one option might be that they offer anyone that wants one of these bikes. And it might be that we as the town council decide to buy a couple to use. I think, did you try one or you use?
No, I wheeled it up the hill. I've had it, yeah.
Did you find it useful?
Yeah, she did, yeah.
I'm
She
a
went
big
down
fan.
to the market on it
I'll send
regularly.
mine at some point.
Yeah.
But the question is, we could extend one to a cargo bike for maintenance teams there. That's another one.
I think there's two issues now. One is whether or not we have one or two bikes based here for use for, town council workers to get to other parts of the town.
Yep.
But then I think there's a wider issue about whether or not they're available more generally to people. So if you go obviously to a major city, you see lots of these bikes around, and you can pick them up and drop them off, as and where you want. But I'm not sure that we're looking at that scheme as such, but I'm just really not
Not at
sure.
the moment, but of course Northampton's had a deal with Voy. Voy, they're the ones, West Northampton's had them in Northampton, North Northampton's had them in Corby, Kettering, Wellingborough, and they're all run by this company Voy.
Right,
And whether they ever extend that, I don't know, because that's still a trial.
okay. Because Corby have, well, not necessarily in favour of them, but Corby have clearly done a deal with people with these e-scooters.
That's and that's North Northampton's done that, right? Yeah, and that's part of the same modal shift plan. So we could look at that, but we have to make sure the schools run.
Yeah.
Okay. Val, have you got anything? No, I haven't got anything. Okay, in that case, meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks very much indeed.